Greetings, Tuberistas. There is a great sex worker controversy shaking up the world of non-marital sexual activity in Europe. As you might know, many EU members, especially in Scandinavia, have long tolerated and then legalized and regulated this activity as socially necessary, as bound to occur anyway. So, in the name of protecting mostly women, their clientele, and society, it's been brought out of the shadows and into the open, as any stroll past the shop windows of Amsterdam's Rossebert will attest. But now there is a movement to restrict this activity. In Sweden, they've cleverly mandated that it's not illegal to sell sexual services, just illegal to buy them. This is in keeping with prevailing capitalist mentalities: don't penalize the seller, only the consumer. This reminds me of a twist on a bad old joke, where it used to be that girls could get arrested for riding a bicycle, as it's illegal to peddle pussy. Now the person to whose house they're peddling can be arrested for letting them stop there. The reasons for this change of heart seems to be twofold. One, there has been a surge of organized crime because for old-fashioned traffickers, they have become green light districts. They retain their old pimp daddy mentality while taking advantage of the very laws that were designed to make these people unnecessary. This has played into a right-wing resurgence that combines immigrant bashing, family values, religious revivalism, and law and order rollback of civil liberties. It seems that demands for sex services outstrip the legal supply, thus creating an open window for illegal, old-fashioned white slavers, still so-called even though their livestock exhibits a rainbow of breeds. As someone living in the US&A, it might appear irrelevant as to what I think about open sex worker regimes. Outside of the Las Vegas area, it's as theoretical a problem as socialized medicine. But it goes to the core of what is meant by prostitution or sex employment as a capitalist commodity. The first term, prostitution, is as much moral judgment as definition. Here, a woman voluntarily compromises herself, usually implying financial distress, or she's a shameless gold digger after the money of foolish men, or she's trapped by a ruthless white slaver and forced into non-consensual sex in fear of her life. The legalizers have said this is also unnecessary, since human sexual needs are as old as the species and have been mistreated and mangled by patriarchal societies to subjugate women more than to uphold family or spiritual values. Freeing the sex worker from object to subject liberates all women and hence society. For my part, I lean to the latter definition, not because I use sexual workers myself. Here they usually are financially distressed crackheads, serfs of pimps who better come up with the cash in a flash if they don't want to be wearing eye shades for a week to cover up black and bloody eye sockets. But to confuse free market sex work with the moral definition of prostitution is like confusing capitalist labor with chattel slavery. They are not identical, though both are exploitive in their own way. Thus, the whole sex worker issue goes to the very heart of exploitation and why these remedies, the legalization versus restriction aspects, are so narrow in concept. First off, the woman is not the only one exploited in the transaction, even in the most liberal definitions. The man's urges and needs are commodified, and the woman is empowered as exploiter. The pay for sex encounter stands between Hugh Hefner, who became a billionaire off male frustrations while keeping them imaginary under the counter, to the full exploitation of a wedding ring. In sex work / prostitution, to remove the exploitation of all parties, you must remove the commodification. How? Treat sex workers as public workers, like school teachers, doctors in a government clinic, firemen, or police who are serving the public good. Make their services available at a state-subsidized fee. The mandate of state protection is thus assured all the way around. Put out of business the exploiter, whether it's an Albanian pimp living off terrified young women from the new free Ukraine, or a legal meat shop displaying its wares behind plate glass. Or, if not put them out of business entirely, make the private provider subject to strict licensing regulation, like private schools, but not attacking the basic right of service itself. And no voucher schemes from the state, please. If sex work were seen as a public health issue in its own right, and not just as a breeding ground for contagious disease, most of the problem would disappear or go into remission. Think of all the male strip clubs and Hooters-type restaurants going out of business, replaced by real public sex centers that circumcise the middleman and make sex work a variant of nursing. So it's not a question of buying another person, any more than buying someone's services or labor or time buys the whole person. Again, there is a distinction between slavery and gainful employment or public service, but this seems to go out the back door when dealing with this subject. But not only because of capitalist mentalities, but because human sexuality is so intimate and so loaded with heavy cultural baggage. known in authority, nor many activists or feminists want to really explore the heart of the dilemma and consider real alternatives. So, while I don't expect any rational choice outside of the free market regime in the near future, it is possible to address and resolve the most important issue. Who's that wrapping my tube line? Excuse me just a moment here. Hello? It's who? Jack the Ripper. You're an expert on solving the sex worker issue, huh? No sex worker, no problem. Well, it seems to me that you're just a symptom of the whole moralizing free market system, Jack. Drive the whole issue into the gutter so parasites can feed on sex workers, in your case, literally. Until human sexuality is seen as a basic need, a right, Jack, which society must come to terms with in an intelligent, compassionate way, you're the shadow lurking behind all the rhetoric.